Hello, and welcome to a explanation of how to play the game Time of Crisis. This is a great little war game, has its action points generated by a deck building Dominion-like card system, and I'm going to try to explain it in a way that gets you going without too many rules. It plays best at 4 players, for sure. But I'm doing a 2-player game so I can play both sides of the match and not be switching screens all the time. When you are presented with your very first choice, as blue in this case, if you look down at the bottom of the board, down here, you will see that you've got a square piece and a round piece in your color of blue. Unfortunately, the colors blue, red, and yellow are doing double duty in this game. There's a blue player, there's a red player. If you have more than 2 more players, there's a yellow player and then a green player. There are also red cards, blue cards, and yellow cards, and those have nothing to do with the player colors. So I am generally going to refer to red cards, red action points, which I could also say military cards, military points, military actions. Red means military here. The fact that we have a red player is just an unfortunate coincidence. Similarly, blue points, blue action points, blue cards, blue and Senate are synonymous in this game. The fact that we have a blue player is an unfortunate coincidence. Yellow points, yellow cards, yellow actions, those are all the populace, appealing to the people actions. So the blue player can use red cards, etc. The very first thing the game will ask you to do is say, where do you want to put your governor, your starting governor? Governors are round pieces. And your starting army with a legion attached to it. Generals who lead armies are square pieces. And I'm going to pick Gallia. I clicked right in the box right in the middle. I now have 1 governor with popularity 1 in Gallia. I have 1 general with a single legion in the capital of Gallia, the garrison. And also I got a free militia unit. The militia unit, it's not usually free, but the very first one you get a free. Red's also going to place a unit. If you can see now, Red's pieces, Red's general and Red's governor are highlighted. Same thing. Now red will draw cards, and this is all set up. You don't really need to worry about this. This is how every game starts, which is that you place a unit and you pick your first 5 cards. Now the first thing that's important to recognize is that this game is a deck building game, hand management game, and it has some core similarities to a game like Dominion, where you start off with a certain number of cards. In this case it's 9, and you're going to every turn draw 5 from your deck. But what's different about this game is that your deck is always open face, and instead of calling it a deck, we just call it the available cards. Every turn, you will draw 5 cards from the available cards. If there are fewer than 5 cards, then you will recycle your discard, just like in a deck building game, only instead of shuffling them and making a new deck, you just take the discard and put them face up into the available, because you always get to choose. Now, I'm going to do a very standard opening. I'm going to take 3 blue cards and 2 red cards. Now, you'll notice they're now in my hand because I've just drawn them. Next turn, I will have to take these 3 yellows and this 1 red, but I will be drawing 5 cards, so that will allow my discard to come back into my available. Plus, if I buy a card at the end of this turn, that will be available as well, because when you buy a card, it goes into your discard, and that's very common in these sorts of games. Blue will also draw cards, and then blue will actually play a turn, and we can talk about the turn sequence. And now it is actually blue's turn. I have a hand of 5 cards. Let's take a look at the player aid for a second. You'll see how a turn works. The turn sequence starts with an upkeep phase. You don't need to worry about this. Then this is the next part. We roll 2d6 to resolve the crisis table. So let's take a look at the crisis table. There's a crisis table right here. It differs in a 2-player, 3-player, and 4-player game, but it's generally the same. The way it works is, if you roll a 7, like I did, we will flip over an event card over here. That's going to happen 1/6 of the time. You read what the card says and you do it. These are often pretty impactful. However, in this example, we drew a card that only applies if there's an emperor, and there is no emperor. So, event. If you roll a 2, you get the Ira Deorum, which is the wrath of God in Latin, and bad things happen. I'll explain that in a second. If you roll a 12, you get Pax Deorum. That's the peace of God. And that one lets you draw another card from the available into your hand. So you would have 6. All the other things on this chart, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, have the name of a barbarian tribe. If you roll that, you will take 1 unit from the various barbarian tribe spaces. Now, there are 5 barbarian tribes in the game: the Franks, the Alemanni, the Goths, the Berber nomads down here, and the Sassanids, who are the Persians. But we're playing a 2-player game. The Sassanids and the nomads aren't in the game, and they're not even on the chart. So just recognize that there are 2 other possibilities. If you roll a Frank, you click on the pile of Franks and you turn one of them from inactive to active, and it just sits there. You always activate 1 more unit of it. But there's a second thing you'll do, which is that you'll roll 2 dice. We'll see that on the next turn. I will save explaining what happens with the invasion until we get one. So now, blue rolled this event. We don't have an invasion. Nothing happens. Time to play my hand. I can just click my cards and start saying, okay, I want to do a 3 blue. I want to have 3 blue action points. And I want to have 2 red action points. If I know I'm going to play them all, I can just click this play all button and boom, they're all played. And then the game tells me that I have 2 military points. Military is red. And 2 Senate points. Senate is blue to play. The strip is blue, reminding me that I'm the blue player right now. Why don't we take a quick look at the player aid again? The military action section of this table tells you all the things you can do with red points, with military cards. The blue section tells you what you can do with blue cards. Let's do a blue action first. I want to recruit a governor. It says here that I must spend blue points equal to the printed cost on the selected counter. So these are my pieces. I'm blue. Round pieces are governors. So if I want to recruit a governor of level 1, the cheat sheet says it will cost me 1 blue point because it's the amount printed on the card. If I were recruiting level 2, it would cost me 2. If I were recruiting level 3, it would cost me 3. It's not going to let me recruit 4 or 5 because I only have 3 points to spend. But I'm going to take the cheapest one. So I click recruit governor and boom. Now all these provinces turn blue. Why did it do that? It did that because I have 2 more Senate points left over. And it assumes now that I've recruited a governor that I might want to place it on the board. And I'm going to place it in Macedonia. So I click on Macedonia. Now I need to explain how you place a governor. Place governor. It's the next thing on the sheet. It says that you need to spend blue points equal to the number of dice you want to roll. And you need to have a governor counter in your available leader box. Well, we already had the governor available in our leader box because we just recruited him with 1 point a moment ago. So that part was met. And so now the question is, how many blue points do I want to spend to roll dice? If I do this action, I have to do spend 1. So it has already spent 1 of my points. I spent 1 blue point to recruit the general. I'm spending 1 to move into this province, but I have 1 more point. And it says that I need 2 votes to win. It turns out that a vote is basically equal to a die roll, a successful die roll. And so I'm going to spend 1 more point to roll 2 dice. And now it's saying, instead of before when I had 1, it said, do I want to roll? When I spend 2, it says this will be automatic. So I go ahead and do it. Why is it automatic? Why did it happen? What just went on? Let me explain. When you want to place a governor, you need to roll a certain number of successful votes. And that number of votes is the popularity of the existing governor, which in this case, before I did this action, there was a gray neutral governor in this space at popularity 1. So I needed 2 votes because it's 2 times 1, plus I would need votes for each of the governor's armies that are in the garrison, in this case, none, minus any governors that I've put from my armies. So just for example, if I were to move this general 2 spaces to Thrace, this is a dumb move. I'm not going to keep it. Now the number of votes that I need to get into Macedonia are 2 times 1 minus 1 because I have 1 unit here. The general himself doesn't count. It's the units that he brought. So if I click on this general and I recruit it and I click here, now it says I only need 1 die. And again, it's saying automatic. It just says I don't need to roll. Why is that? Well, the die is a vote, but a successful vote is a roll of 2 or higher, except when you're against a neutral governor, you get a +1. So if you roll a 1, +1, that's a 2. So every vote against a neutral governor, every die roll against a neutral governor automatically succeeds. But this is a dumb move, and I'm not going to do it. Instead, I'm going to recruit a governor, go into Macedonia. I'm going to spend an extra Senate point, and now I get to roll 2 dice, and against a neutral, each die roll is automatic, and I only need 2 to take this province. We're done with that action. And I've used all my Senate points. 1 to recruit the number 1 governor, and 2 to get 2 votes to be voted in. It's possible, mind you, that I could have taken this with just 1, even without moving my troops there. Notice how it says here, I could roll 1 die, even though I need 2 votes. Whenever you roll a die, either for votes for governor or in battles, if you roll a 6, you get to roll another die. So while this is a low probability act, what I could do is roll 1 die to try to become governor. It's going to be an automatic vote because it's a neutral. But if I roll a 6, I'll get to roll a second die. And that would also be an automatic vote, and so I would win. It's only a 1/6 chance of that. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to spend the Senate point. Now I control Macedonia. Now what else am I going to do in this turn? I've got 2 military points. Let's look at the cheat sheet. The cheat sheet offers me a whole bunch of things I can do with red points. And one of them is a recruited general, which follows the exact same pattern as recruiting a governor. You click on the unit and it costs the number of points equal to the value on the thing. So my number 1 general cost me 1 red point to recruit. My number 2 general cost me 2, but I don't want to spend 2. I'm going to spend 1. I'm going to recruit him. And now, before when we were playing a governor, it offered us a bunch of blue provinces. Blue is the governor, Senate oriented actions. Red are the general military actions. And again, it's using red, even though I'm the blue player, because red is the color of military actions of red cards. And it's saying, I can place this general because the second thing that you can do as a general is you can create an army. You spend 1 red point, plus you need to have a general available in your leader box, and you can place it anywhere in a province that you already govern. But what provinces do I govern? Well, I started with Gallia, and then just now I added Macedonia. I'm going to recruit him right into Macedonia. When I first place him, I want him to be in the garrison, because if you remember, the way that you can switch the governor of a province is based on how many units you or the other guy has in the garrison. So leaving your guy in the garrison when your turn ends is a good defense against having your province stolen from you. So whenever you place an army, just get in the habit of placing it directly into the garrison. You can't if somebody's already in your garrison. Let's go back to the player aid. That was the upkeep phase. Nothing happened there. We did the crisis phase, and now I just completed the take action phase. I played all my cards and I spent all my points. Now there's a little bit of housekeeping, support check phase, expand pretender empire phase. Those will happen later in the game. You don't need to know those to get started. We've jumped right down to the gain legacy phase. And what the game says is, okay, let's gain some legacy. Well, how much legacy do you get? You get a point for, let's look at the cheat sheet. You get a point at the end of your turn for every province you govern. I govern 2 provinces, hence 2 points for provinces. Let's just talk about what the points are. If I build improvements, which I will explain next turn, I would get a point for each improvement. If I were emperor, which I'm going to explain in a few turns, I would get points for how much support my governor had in Italy. You can see the neutral governor has 3 support right now. I probably would have something like 3 when I take it over too. I would get 3 points for that. Except if there's a pretender, which I'm going to explain at the very end of this video, I'm going to lose a point for every province a pretender holds. And if instead of being the emperor, I'm a pretender to the throne, I get a point for every province that I have marked as in my power, as long as there aren't any other pretenders. The only other way you can get points in this game is if you fight a battle and you win, you get 2 points plus 1 for every barbarian counter that gets removed. And at the very end, we're going to see who was emperor the longest and going to award 10, 6, or 3 points, depending. That's what the legacy phase is, as we go through and we see how many points were scored for these end of turn scores. And we also increment by 1 the number of terms you were emperor if that's applicable. Now we're going to go into the buy and trash cards phase. And in fact, the game is now signaling, hey, it's time to buy and trash cards. And it's giving me 2 points. How do you score points for the buy and trash? That's really easy to calculate. add up the popularity of your governors. I've got one governor here with 1 and one governor here with 1, so that's 2. Now I can go shopping, buying cards, or I can trash cards. If I had any cards I could trash, they would be in my discard and they would be highlight. But it costs 3 points, 3 political points to trash a card, and I only have 2, so I can't trash a card. But I can go shopping, and look at that. The cards that are worth 2 points are all highlighted in yellow. The ones that are worth 3 and 4 are not. It's probably not going to confuse you too much to say that the ones that are 2 cost 2 points, the ones that are 3 cost 3, and the ones that are 4 cost 4. But there's a wrinkle. You can only pay the base price for cards if you control as many provinces as that cost. To say that in simpler English, to buy a 2-level card, you have to control 2 provinces, or else you'll have to pay a higher price. To buy a 3-level card, you have to control 3, or you'll pay a higher price. And to buy a 4-level card, you have to control 4, or you pay a higher price. There's nothing above 4. The higher price is that it doubles. If I wanted to buy a 3 card right now, I would need 6 points. The other thing to remember is the first card you buy is at the base cost. 2 or 4 if you don't have 2 provinces, 3 or 6 if you don't have 3 provinces, 4 or 8 if you don't have 4 provinces. The second card is that same price plus 1. You have to pay an extra 1 for every card you've already bought. The third one will be plus 2. As it is, my choice is pretty simple. I can only buy a level 2 card. I am going to buy Cavalry. The other option I might have thought about was Princeps Senatus, and I'm going to end my turn. At the very end of your turn, end of turn phase, you will flip any barbarians over that are inactive to make them active. I'll explain that later. You would deal with mobs of angry people, if there were any. I'll explain that later. And then, most importantly, you refill your hand to 5 cards. This is the equivalent in Dominion of redrawing your deck, but you're doing it face up, so you're fully aware of what cards are available. As I mentioned before, I'm going to take the 4 cards that were not chosen the first time. Then all my cards pop from discard up to available. This is the equivalent of shuffling your deck, but I'm not shuffling because it's face up. And then I can pick 1 more card. And I'm going to take this brand new Cavalry card that I pick. So now next turn I'm going to get 3 yellow points and 3 red points, but no blue points. So if I want to do any Senate actions with the blue points, I'm not going to be able to next turn. And this is a thing that needs to be taken into account, that you will be planning for your next turn before you see the new board state. In a 2-player game, not so bad. In a 4-player game, a lot of stuff happens between turns, so be aware. Okay, that's the end of blue's turn. Let's go and take a look at red's turn. Red's turn is going to be very similar, but I'll quickly re-emphasize the rules that we've learned. All right, it's red's turn now. Red rolled a 6, not a 7 last time, so we actually get an event that involves the barbarians. And it's a 6. We click on the 6, and as I may have indicated earlier, when that happens, we then roll dice again. We rolled a 4 and a 4. This first one we compare against the number of barbarians ready to go. There's only 1. If this is equal to or less than it, there's an invasion. It's not, it's higher, so there is no invasion. We'll talk about invasions later. Goth does not invade. Now it's red's turn. Red plays all of his cards, the same cards as I had before. 3 Senate, 2 military, that is 3 blue, 2 red. Going to do the exact same activities I did before. Click on a governor, recruit him, click on a province, spend a point to make it automatic. Now I control it. Now recruit a general with 1 point. Now place it into a province that I control with the other point. Have a brand new province. End of turn. I have 2 political points. Can you remember why? Yes, we add up the value of our governors. 1 plus 1. That is equal to 2. That gets us 2 points to spend. We also scored 2 points because we have 2 provinces. But now we're going down here, and this guy, instead of buying cavalry, he's going to buy the Princeps Senatus. Done. I draw the 4 cards that were available to me, and I can pick 1 more. This time I will pick the Princeps Senatus. So unlike the other player, the blue player, who does not have any blue cards and cannot do a Senate action, I will be able to do something of Senate with Senate 2, but my military is much more restricted. I can only do 1 action next turn. End of turn. It's blue's turn now. Also rolled a 9, which means Franks. So I click on the Franks, and now I'm going to roll. Right here, you're going to see it pop up. I'm going to roll another 2 dice. I roll a 3 and a 4. 3 is bigger than 1, so no invasion. Put all my cards into play. All right, this is the first time we've gotten to talk about what the populace actions are. So why don't we pop over to the cheat sheet and look at the populace actions. What can you do with yellow points? If you have 2 yellow points, you can place a militia unit into the garrison. Looking at blue's options, there's already a militia unit here. So it doesn't offer me place militia. But here, there isn't a militia unit. And that's one thing that a governor can do. Militia are the army units of the governors as opposed to the army units of the generals. Those are called legions. Militia units suck. They only hit on a 5 or a 6, whereas legions hit on a 3+. They can't leave the capital. They can only fight in a defensive war when they're attacked, or in an offensive war if the attack is coming from the garrison. Another thing that you can do with populace points is you can spend 2 points to hold games to remove 1 mob counter. Mob counters will come later in the game, very much later in the game. If there's a mob, an angry mob in your capital, your governor can spend 2 yellow points and reduce it by 1. Another thing that you can do is if you have 3, you can buy a building. And I do have 3. I click on this guy and I say build improvement. Let's do it up here. Build an improvement in Gallia. There are 3 kinds of improvement. There's an amphitheater, there's a basilica, and then there are limes. Please don't say limes. I'm going to build some limes right here. Used all 3 of my points because building an improvement costs 3 yellow points. The cheat sheet tells you what these do. Placing a governor in Italy is how the game simulates making an attempt to become emperor. If you successfully place a governor in Italy, you're the emperor, and you can start earning emperor points and all that stuff. Now, if you remember from our cheat sheet, when you build an improvement, you'll score an extra legacy point too. So, in addition to now having some utility, I'm also going to score an extra point per turn as long as I control that province. So I'm going to score 3 points at the end of this turn instead of 2. The other thing, though, that I could have done with the populace actions is I could have increased the support level for my governor. If you notice, this governor, it wants to go from 1 to 2. If I click on this governor, the same thing. I can spend that many points. If I'm going from 1 to 2, I spend 2. If I'm going from 2 to 3, I spend 3 to increase this. Now, this doesn't score me any end of game points, but the buying and trashing points that I use to buy cards or sell or to trash cards comes from the total value of my governor. So that would go up from 2 to 3. I would get 3 trash points. But I'm not going to do that this turn. I'm going to stick with my idea of building some limes. I'm going to get 3 victory points. They're called legacy points, but victory points. I'm only going to have 2 buy trash points. Now, I do have 3 military actions to do something. I think what I will do is I will recruit the 3 general because that uses all of my points. It doesn't offer me to put the unit into a place. And just have him sit here off the board. That means that next turn I only need 1 point to place him somewhere. And if I succeed in controlling Asia, for example, I could place him right there. He's been paid for already. End of my turn. As I said, I score 3 points, 2 for the provinces, 1 for the improvement in terms of victory points. So I have 5. I only get 2 political points because it's 1 and 2. I come down here. It doesn't let me trash any cards in my discard because I only have 2 points, but I can buy a card. Last turn I bought a cavalry, so this turn I'm going to buy the Princeps Senatus. I have to draw the 5 cards that are in my available. These discard cards won't come into available until I go to draw another card, so there's no choice at all. I'm back to my original hand for this player. Okay, with red, we rolled Franks again. So the red player is going to click on a Frank, and I rolled a 6, which is bigger than 2, so they still don't invade. So now it is blue's turn. And oof, we rolled Franks again. Now things are getting spicy because I have 3 guys there and I rolled a 3 on the black die, which is equal to or less than what I needed to start an invasion. So we're going to invade. Look, invade with 3 Franks, and this die now comes into play. This die tells you where they're going to go. 1 or 2 says they're going to go to Britannia, which is really boring in a 2-player game because Britannia isn't really an area that you care about. How many is equal to the value of this die. So all 3 of them. Boom, boom, boom. If you remember the cheat sheet, another thing that you can do with military is you can add a legion to an army. And to add a legion to the army costs as many points as you'll end up with. So if you have 1 and you're going to add 1 to end up with 2, it will cost you 2. Instead of using the add legion to army, let's use the move army action. You can use 1 point to move to an adjacent region. So let's move to Thracia. Now I still have 1 military point left, and I can use 1 red point to attack another army in the same region. Now this I will not be able to undo because I'm rolling dice. But I'm going to talk about combat for a second. When you click on an army to fight, it puts them both into this little gray box. The general doesn't count. So I have 1 legion and the red player has 1 militia unit. It's hard to see. Let's zoom in for a second. The names here are just for flavor, but this is the 15th Apollinaris unit. It will hit on a 3+. The militia will hit on a 5+. So I hit 2/3 of the time, and the militia hits 1/3 of the time. That's pretty good odds. I'm going to roll. Each one rolls is going to roll 1 die. There's a wrinkle, which is if I roll a 6, the 6 entitles me to another roll. This is just like I mentioned in the Senate place governor action. Anytime you roll a 6, you get another roll. So this unit, either of the units, if it rolls a 6, it will roll another die. It could hit twice. If that one's a 6, it could roll another die, and you're going to keep rolling dice until you stop rolling 6s. Alia jacta est, as they say. Boom! What happened? Well, the militia rolled a 1 and I rolled a 2, so nothing happened. Defenders win ties, unless the defender is wiped out and the attacker remains. What am I going to do with them? Well, first of all, I am going to attack again. But this time, I can use the cavalry card. Now, I should talk about these. This is the first time we've had really nice cards, the cards that have some bonus actions on them. This is really important. In a lot of card-driven war games, you use the action points or the activity or the bonus. Here you get to do both. So I get credit for the 2 red points, and I can use the cavalry action once. And what the cavalry action says is click on it right before battle. If you do, you will win ties as the attacker instead of lose. So now that result we had last time where it was nobody won, I would win instead of the defender winning. I roll. Of course, the defender rolled 1 hit and the attacker rolled 0 hits because the defender rolled a 5, but I rolled a 2. Now we get to see the other thing about legions. Legions come in 2 strengths, full strength and half strength. By being hit once, I didn't die. Instead, I went to half strength. But now I'm going to also do the thing called train legions, which is you take 1 red point and you flip a reduced strength legion, the guy who just got damaged, back to full strength. I click on the general, I train the legion back up. Well, if I take this governor, I can place him in Rome right now. And it's only going to take 2 votes. And I have this card here which says before playing a governor action, click it, and it adds a vote. So look at that. I can become emperor. When I became emperor, unlike all these other ones where you start at level 1, I got put at level 3 because it is the 3rd province that I control. When you become emperor, you set the governor support equal to the number of total provinces, including Italia, that you control. We're going to end the turn. Now, we're going to start scoring some more points because let's look at the legacy points here. I'm going to get 1 for each province that I govern. That's 3. I'm going to get 1 for each improvement that I have. I still just have the 1 limes. But now I'm going to get points for the support level in Italy, which if you remember is 3. So I'm going to get 3 more points, and there's no pretender stuff. We haven't even talked about pretenders yet. So now I'm going to get 7 points when I end this. I forgot about Zenobia. Become emperor and Zenobia is still on the map. You're going to lose 1 level of support. Well, look at that. I had 3 level of support, but because there's a rival emperor on the map, that's Zenobia here, go down by 1. I'm not going to get 7 points. Because of Zenobia, I lost a support level from 3 to 2, which means that I only end up with 6 points instead of the 7 that I had previously predicted. 3 for the provinces, 1 for the improvement, but only 2 for the emperor. Okay, everything that you know now is enough to get you going with the game. I had said during the course of my playthrough that I was going to teach you about the pretender cards and the pretender points, but By the time those come up in the game, you will have figured it out. So I'm going to stop now. Thanks for listening, and I hope this helps you get started with Time of Crisis.